Hey everyone, this is Brian from ActiveMelody.com. Well, in this week's guitar lesson we have a slow groove that's played with just two chords, and so we're going to alternate back and forth between a minor chord and a major chord. Just two chords throughout the whole thing. And so it's going to be your job to make those two chords sound interesting. You don't want to just play the chords. What will make it interesting is playing the chords and some fill licks, so I'll show you how to do that, some little lead fills in between the chords, as well as playing those chords in different voicings, so playing them higher on the neck. And so you just have a lot of options. And so that's what I'm going to show you how to do with this week's lesson. So hopefully you'll have a lot of takeaways that you can apply to your own playing from this. I've got this lesson split into two parts. So in this video we're going to take a look at the first half of what I played in the intro. If you want to learn the second half, as well as download the MP3 jam track to practice with and the tablature, you're going to want to go to ActiveMelody.com and look for EP087. That's the lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and start part one. Alright, so let's talk through tone real quick. I am playing on the Telecaster. I have the pickup selector switch set between the bridge and the neck pickup. And so tone and volume are at 100%. So that's the setup there. I have a Boss Blues Driver BD2 pedal on, which I have on in just about everything that I play. And I have the gain at about 10%, so very minimal gain, just enough to give it a little bit of boost. And I've also got an Electro Harmonics Memory Man pedal that I'm using for a little bit of chorus. And you can hear how it makes the tone just waver a little bit. And that just gives a little more color to the tone and fattens it up a little. And you don't have to have any of that. You could play straight into your amplifier and just go clean channel. Or you don't even need to have an electric guitar at all. You could do this on an acoustic and it'll sound fine. So anyway, that's the setup that I have. Now let's talk through the chords. Now I mentioned in the intro there's two chords. And those chords are, there's a D minor 7th chord, which I'll show you how to play. And then there's a G chord, G major chord. So the little jam just kind of goes back and forth between those two chords. Now there's actually one other chord. I was a little bit deceptive. I didn't think about this when I mentioned it in the intro, but there's a transition chord that happens really quickly, and you'll hear it right here. Let me hear it. So that little chord, that's a C chord, and I'll show you where that is. Now that's not mentioned in the tab, because technically this is just a two-chord jam, but there is a little transition that happens there. So I'll call that out, and I'll show you why I'm playing it the way that I am, and so anyway, we'll get to that as we get into the lesson. Alright, so let's talk about this D minor 7th chord. Now, first of all, we're going to bar here on the 5th fret, and I'm going to assume you know how to make a D minor. Well, let me talk you through that in case you don't. Let's bar the 5th fret. I'm going to take my middle finger and go to the 6th fret 2nd string. And I'm going to take my pinky and I'm going to go to the 7th fret 3rd string. Make sure you're using your pinky for that. Then the ring finger goes down on the 7th fret 4th string. Now what that chord is, that's a D minor chord. Okay, so to make a D minor 7th chord, all you're going to do is you're going to take that chord and take your pinky off. And so the only reason I showed you how to make the D minor chord was because I know some of you know how to make that already, but you may not know how to make a D minor 7th chord. So all you have to do is just remember, make the D minor chord, take your pinky off. There's your D minor 7th chord. It's a really cool sounding chord because it allows you to do stuff like that. So you can hammer on those two fingers in the chord and you can get all, you can get kind of a funky thing going. You can have a real nice slow groove thing, but that hammer on effect is really nice. So just remember that anytime you're playing a D minor 7th chord, you do have that option to kind of hammer on those notes. Okay, so that's your first chord. Now, when I played that C chord, that transition chord that I was telling you about, and we'll get the fretting. Let's get the fretting first, and then I'll show you the strumming pattern so we can get that down. So there's the first thing. Now when I do that, I'm really trying to only play strings 2, 3, and 4. And I'm just barring, it's just a full bar, so I'm keeping my bar there on the 5th fret. And look at what's happening. If you think about playing it, so some of you know how to make a C chord here, right? And then some of you know how to make a C chord like this. This is the one where you bar the 3rd fret, the first 5 strings, and then you bar, I use my pinky to bar the first 4 strings on the 5th fret, but you only play the middle 4 strings. Well, if you look at what you're doing here, when you're barring this, you're just playing those three notes out of this chord, this shape. So that's how that works. So just so it kind of, hopefully that clicks with you as to how that could be a C chord. That's how you're doing it, or that's where it's coming from. So, and what I'm trying to do there, is, like I said, is play strings 2, 3, and 4. Now, every now and then I'll accidentally hit the 5th string, and that works too. Because it happens so quick, your ear doesn't have time to really process it, I think. So then you're moving right on to the G major bar chord. And so that I'm going to assume you know how to make a G major bar chord. It's just like an E chord down in first position, but you slide everything up to here, and your finger replaces where the nut is. So think of the nut as your bar, and so your finger is kind of like a capo. So that's how you make a G chord, a G major bar chord. So those are the two chords. You have the D minor 7th, and then the G major, well, and then you have that third chord, that little C chord that happens real quick. All right, so now let's get into the rhythm. So the way that we're going to play the rhythm is we're going to start by doing 3 downstrokes. Watch this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now notice something. Let me not talk. Let me just play it. What happens is you're building to a pop. Pop. And those pops happen on the 2 and the 4 beat. So if we're counting this out, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Let me watch it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason that that's important is you're setting the beat by doing those little pops. And the way that I strum that, the 2 downs, or well, it really starts with those 3 downstrokes, but the first 2, I'm playing strings 5, 4, and 3. I'm just kind of playing the lower registry, and it's almost like I'm subtly building up to that. So it's kind of, those first 2 can be kind of soft and kind of almost messy. You're not even, it's okay if you don't hit all 3 strings, even if you just hit those bottom 2. But you're just kind of subtly playing the bottom end of the chord, and then you're popping on the top part of it. Now, when we pop on the top part of it, when I strum it, the downstroke, I make sure I hit those the top strings in the chord. So strings 1, 2, and 3. Those for sure. Now you can just go ahead and get all 5 strings in that chord. It doesn't matter. The thing that's the most important is that you're getting the top end of it, the high end. So you're starting with a low end, you're ending with a high end. Low end, high end. The other thing to point out is I release the tension here in my left hand. I keep my fingers in place, but I release the tension so that the chord doesn't ring out like this. It goes, and that's how you do that. You control the ringing of the chord with your left hand. That's why you see a lot of rhythm players playing higher up on the neck. You have control over how long it's gonna ring out. Okay, so let's back up. So we have 1, 2, 1, 2. That's how we start this thing. Now, the next thing that happens, after we do the little pop, I'm going to do a down up, but they're going to be muted like this. Down up. So after the pop, you got those 2 muted strokes. It's a downstroke and an upstroke. And notice my left hand, it just stays in place, but it's not pushing down. It's just muting the strings. Okay, so after that down up, then I'm going to go. So that's down, up, down, up, up. Down, up, down, up, up. Down, up, down, up, up. Remember that. So after the little down, up, up. All right, so let's back up and try everything from the start. We have. Okay, try it again. Do you start to feel that groove? Then we're going to go right to the G. Now the G, I start the G exactly the same way with the 1, 2, 3. Those 3 downstrokes. We're going to play the low end of the G chord, 1, 2, and then the 3. Watch this. That's that high end pop that we get playing the high end of the chord, or the higher strings in the chord. And so following that same pattern, and it happens on the pop happens on the 2 again. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, just like that, right on the 2. All right, backing up, here's what we have so far. I'll do it slowly. We have now, one other thing to point out, before we got to the G chord, after I went and played that little, there's that little C chord. I didn't mention that before, but that's where we'll play the C chord. So you have, take your fingers off, leave the bar in place. That's that extra upstroke. So that's that down, up, up. That last up is that C chord. So right after we play that C, by doing the upstroke, we're going to do a downstroke and an upstroke, but both muted. So watch this. Now here's one way to remember this. Watch the right hand. It really stays in motion. It's going down, up, and it never really breaks. See how it just stays in motion? And so the only reason I point out that those little extra down, up, muted notes are that those are really, that's how you keep the groove going. If you stop there, you could stop there, you could go that would be okay too, but it feels better to me to keep the groove going. It's a very subtle thing. You could just hear it in between those 2 chords, but I want to point out all these little subtleties because I think that's what will make your playing. So, all right. So now in the G part, as I mentioned, we have the down, down, down. And after that, then I throw in this little fill. And so that becomes the cadence for this whole thing. So every time we play the G, we got dun, dun, ba. And then I have free reign to do whatever I want at this point in terms of a lead. And so what's nice about this style is you've already determined, for the listener's ear, you've already laid down the groundwork. You've got the groove, and then you got the second chord, so it kind of resolved. So what I played, which was right out of the D minor pentatonic scale, because we're in the key of D, was this. I went, and let me show you how to play those notes, and I'll show you where those notes are coming from when I say they're out of the D minor pentatonic scale. So I start on the 3rd fret with my ring finger, 3rd fret 6th string, and I'm going to slide up to the 5th fret. Now watch this. These next notes are all happening between the 3rd fret and the 5th fret. So we're going to go on the 5th string, we're going to go fret 3, fret 5, and then we're going to come back to fret 3, but on the 4th string, and then I'm going to give a little vibrato there. So we have, and then the last note is on the 5th fret, 5th string. So it's a little run there. And I thought that sounded kind of cool. It sounds like something a bass player would do, you know, and that little stop. You'll notice that the jam track stops for you too, which is kind of fun because it allows you to really, once you get this concept and you're able to do the strumming, you'll be able to do your own improv, so you won't have to just do the licks that I'm showing you. I think that's what makes this fun, is that you can start to throw in whatever else that you wanted to do there. So those are the notes. All right, so if we look at where these notes come from, those are in the bottom part of pattern 4, which is in the key of D. So in the key of D, you have between the 3rd fret and the 5th fret here, you have 6 notes that you can use, and they're easy to remember because there's just between these 2 frets. It almost makes like a little box. So when you think about that, you could do any kind of improv you want using those 6 notes. You got these kind of nice low end notes to play with. So there's all kinds of little runs you could do, just kind of playing around with in between those two frets. So the first one that I wanted to throw at you was that run. So let's back up and let's put that into context. So we have now right after we come down and play that 5th fret 5th string, we're going to go right back into the D minor 7th chord. Same groove. Back to the G. Now we're going to play another little lick. So you can start to see the pattern here. So this lick goes. Now, still playing in this low end of pattern 4, we're going to start on the 3rd fret 4th string. This one's really easy to do. So 3rd fret 4th string, 5th fret 4th string, and then watch this. So what I did when I played the 5th fret 4th string, I slid up to the 6th fret and then back to the 5th fret. And I just did that with my ring finger. Then back to the 3rd fret, and then the final note is on the 5th fret 5th string. So the 6th fret 4th string note, that's considered a blue note, and you'll hear people talk about that when you talk about the blues scale. The blues scale is really the minor pentatonic scale with that extra note thrown in, which gives you that real blue. It just sounds bluesy, so that's why it's called the blue note. But anyway, that's where that lick came from that I threw in there. So the first lick, and then the second lick goes. All right. Now we have 2 more licks. So then we're back to the D minor 7th, back to the G, and then I went. And now this time we're going to start on at sort of the top. You know how I showed you the little box there, those 6 notes. Now we're going to start at the top of that box. Think of it that way. Start with your ring finger on the 5th fret 4th string. We're going to slide up to the 7th fret 4th string. Then we're going to put our pointer finger down on the 5th fret 3rd string. So you have that. Now think about it. You could play those 2 notes together. You could do all kinds of stuff with just that little piece of information. But what I did was I went. So I slid up to the 7th fret 4th string, 5th fret 3rd string. Then I'm back on the 7th fret 4th string. Now watch this. As soon as I play it, I'm going to slide it back down to the 5th fret, play the 3rd fret 4th string, and then the last note is the 5th fret 5th string. Now notice that all of these are resolving on the 5th fret 5th string. So look, the first lick went. So it resolved there. The second one went. So it resolved there. The third one went. Right? Okay, so and then the last one actually doesn't resolve there, but just wanted to point that out. And the reason why that works is because that's the note, that's the D note, which is part of the chord. You can see, in fact, that actual note is in the chord. And so it kind of pulls you back to where the chord is going. Since you're in the G part of the song when you're doing the lick, that's why that works. So you're kind of resolving. So you can just remember that. You can always, if you land on a D, and it doesn't have to be that D, it can be an octave higher or whatever, but it'll work. It'll pull you back. I don't like to point that out that often because honestly, I don't think that way when I'm playing lead or playing these little fill licks. I don't think about where it has to resolve because it doesn't have to work that way. You don't have to be that scientific about it. It takes something out of it for me to try and plan out where I'm going to end up. It just so happened. In fact, I didn't even notice that until I'm breaking down this lesson that those all landed there on that 5th fret 5th string. But you'll notice the fourth lick that I play, which I'll show you now, it resolved here, which is on the 7th fret 4th string. So it doesn't have to always resolve on the D, but just wanted to point out that you can do that. For those of you that like to know where to go, you can remember that. So let's let me go over this. Actually, before I get into that final lick, let me show you. Let me show you that one in context. So I'll back up from the beginning. So we have. Now we're back. And then we have. So let's get that. So what we have, we're going to start here on the 7th fret 3rd string with our ring finger. Then we're going to come down to the 5th fret 3rd string. And then we're going to go to the 7th fret 4th string. So we have, notice we have another little box here. And I only point that out because if you think about, now you have just more of a run when you think of the notes that you have here. So that's all I'm doing is I'm starting here on that 7th fret 3rd string. Then I come back to, so I go down to the, so 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, so that's 7th fret 4th string. Then there's the 5th fret 3rd string. And when I play that, I give it a little vibrato. And then the final note is the 7th fret 4th string again. So we're back to that. So we have, and that's the lead part. It's very simple. Back into the D minor 7. Okay. So let's just recap that. We'll go through all of it. I'll play through it slowly so you have this as a reference. And then we'll see you in the part 2 video. So here we go. Watch your timing. And then we go into part 2. So if you're a premium member, you'll go on to the second video and I'll go through that as well as all these little higher chord voicings, which just continue to give you more options. So that's all I have for part 1. We'll see you in part 2.